Hi, I'm Sumit Bose, and this is the Net Hero podcast. Who's it for? It's for you. If you care about the planet and you care about business. We believe that businesses are responsible for a lot of the damage that has been done to the planet, but they're also responsible for finding the solutions. We need innovation, we need ideas, we need people who are trying to make a difference, and that's what this podcast is about. If you know someone who is trying to make a change, then get them to come along on the podcast. Listen in every week, subscribe, and make sure that you follow us on social media. Our two news platforms, Energy Live News and Future Net Zero, cover everything we do. And this episode is recorded live, so enjoy.
The Labour government has been on it when it comes to planning. You could not have missed the news that they want to put a bulldozer through all the planning laws and build out much more. That's infrastructure for energy, that's infrastructure for housing, that's infrastructure for everything, the built environment. Now, if you look at how much the built environment contributes to emissions, it's quite significant. It's about 25% in the UK. And we've covered on the podcast many different topics about how to reduce the footprint of our homes, offices, places of work. But one thing I haven't done is that could I do it with a little toke? No, I'm joking. But hemp is a natural material that's around. And a lot of people have said, could it be something that takes us back to the retro years of humanity, where we built things from the plants and animals that were around us? How we got wooden houses, bamboo, we've looked at it. But is hemp a serious player? Could it actually be part of making proper houses, proper offices? That's the sort of infrastructure conundrum that we're going to explore today. And I'm delighted to say I'm joined from a man who knows his maple syrup, who knows everything that comes from the great land of Canada, but he's here. I always call it Canada, so I'm sorry, Michael, but I always love to say that. Michael Walker, founder of a company called Build with Hemp, but now you're an honorary Brit, aren't you, living in Surrey, correct?
That is right. The home of the true North Strong and Free, Canada, is where I originally come from. And yes, I am a big fan of the maple syrup.
There's nothing wrong with it. It's got to be done.
It's a Canadian tradition. Absolutely. It's a staple food for all of us.
So just before we get into kind of what you've been doing, I said at the beginning that, 25% emissions comes from where I'm sitting now, where you're sitting, the offices, the buildings, all of that. Before we get into what you're doing with hemp, why did you want to look into this area? Have you got a background in kind of like, are you involved in construction industry? Are you a kind of energy specialist? How did this all come about?
So it really started about 12 years ago for me in the medicinal space, where I got involved in the growing and extraction of cannabinoids that were found in the hemp plant. And we were using that as a pathway to really just help other people with natural medicines and plant-based medicines that have been used for centuries. And we sadly had lost a sister within our family. And one of the benefits of watching some of the oils being used and some of the natural herbs that my sisters were applying really did offer relief. And so that was sort of the beginning of our pilgrimage to sort of really use natural-based medicines to try and improve the welfare and the health and welfare, or at least give other people the opportunity to try traditional medicines, and more so than the pharmaceuticals. And that journey started with finding the hemp and the cannabinoid profiles that were growing in particular strains. So no toking, no crazy, no crazy THC in any of the products that we were using. But yet again, there is a place for that in fairness, but I'm sure that's a different day for a different podcast.
That's a different podcast. That's an after.
Yeah, that's a different podcast. But no, it was just really an incredible journey as far as our introduction into that space really came, sort of introduced me to a network of people who are just so incredibly passionate and just the amount of science and technology that had been introduced, how far they had advanced it. But so much of that report and so much of that evidence has been demonized within the whole cannabis space and the medical marijuana space. So what was really evident, though, is that this hemp plant was just an incredible miracle from Mother Nature, and a gift that she's been giving us for years and years and centuries, and being so widely used.
Yes, of course.
And of course now it got into a space where the cannabinoid market, the CBD market, really launched here in the UK, and then that sort of filtered out. But equally during that time frame, over the last 8 seasons, I was really lucky to be working with a company out in Holland called the Denalgro Group. And they had been growing, I think they're on their 38th, 39th harvest, and probably lead the European knowledge base in plant-based construction. And the amount of commercial building, residential buildings, and applications they had used. And one of the main CEO had just kind of said, Michael, why don't you just take this back to the UK where I was based and introduce it into the UK market? And my viewpoint was always very much, hey, I'm in the wellness space. I'm going to pick a lane.
Yeah.
But every season, every summer that I would go out into the farms, it was nothing but truck after lorry, picking up new construction products, going right across the European different countries, different applications being used. And he was doing more and more construction than he was doing anything else with it. So it was really an eye-opening experience for me. And really that was the start of our journey to see how we can then introduce natural products that were being used over the last 30 years right across Europe, across all kinds of really recognizable infrastructure projects. And why the heck weren't we using it here in the UK? And that was when that's when I started. I brought it back in about 4 years ago, and here we are.
It's very interesting because the hemp plant, as you say, cultures have used it for thousands of years, actually. So the plant for pain relief, and I'm very sorry to hear about your loss in your sister. But I mean, I have rheumatoid arthritis myself, and and I'm sort of under control with some synthetic drugs, but I know people who've used medicinal cannabis. Hemp is used for clothing.
Yes.
My family's from India. Loads of plants of India. They use jute and hemp and these sort of plants for that. But I haven't really thought of it as a building material.
Yeah.
So this firm that you talked about that you saw in Holland, perhaps before we go to what that is, for people who don't know what hemp looks like, how does it grow? Is it a tree?
Sure.
Is it like a kind of bamboo type plant? How does it actually appear in nature?
So it very much comes from and this is kind of where the demonization comes through. It looks like a traditional marijuana plant at an early stage. So It's one of about 19, I think it's about 1,900 different strains of hemp. And what you're trying to do in the natural growing industrial hemp, that's what they call sativa L. So the indica and the sativa is the stuff that you would normally traditionally associate with cannabis types of strains. It's completely different. So only at a very, very infancy stage where you have a similar leaf sprouting. The key thing that you're looking for when the medical grade cannabis comes into play is the flower. And here, what we're looking for when we're growing industrial hemp is not the flower. We are actually looking for the stalk, and we're looking for the fiber. And that is really what's really important. And the cool thing within hemp is that this seed to a full plant is roughly about 90 days. It gets up from, like I said, the seedling to about 3.5 to 5 meters tall in roughly 90 days. We grow once a year in that crop, and that rapid growth in 90 days literally allows this plant to sequester so much of that carbon. And it is a weed. It is incredibly versatile. So the performance against climate changes, the heat, the cold, the rain, the sleet.
It's very robust.
It is incredibly robust. But one of the cool things about with hemp growing so rapidly and the carbon sequestration, it's also about what's happening under the soil. So as the root structure goes and the plant structure gets really high and the canopies get to, like I said, 3 to 5 meters tall in such a rapid time frame, what's happening in the roots are going down 1 meter to 1.5 meters in all the tap roots, and they're pulling up all the kinds of different historical fertilizers and types of material that the farmers have used over generations that have sort of sunk down. That would be way too expensive to bring back up to the surface area. So by bringing that back up, the root structure is bringing back up all those really rich nutrients that have been buried under the ground, and it's reinvigorating the soil and cleaning the soil as well. So there's above ground and a below ground scenario, this hemp plant. And you often find most of the farmers growing will use hemp as crop rotation. So they're bringing back up historical and ancient soil and nutrients,
remediate the
tons
soil.
of nitrogen and everything else that they've used. A little cover crop to kind of keep that nitrogen protected before they go into a winter crop. But equally, when they're up to 3.5, 4 meters tall, it is creating so many different opportunities for new habitat, wildlife creating in, but it's also creating a new revenue stream for farmers who have traditionally really banked on wheat crops and things like that here in the UK, but haven't been able to really capitalize that because of the changes in the weather and the climate and such. So the hemp in itself, seed to a 3-meter plant, 90 days. We then come back in and we chop it down. We chop it down in sort of meter heights, and we let that lay on the ground for another week to 2 weeks to 10, maybe 10 to 2 weeks, really, depending on Mother Nature. But we really want to get that separation of the fiber and the stalk and little microbials that go in there and the moisture that starts to pull it out, because hemp, like bamboo, is so incredibly strong. And when you go to process it, it just literally, it's like almost like chopping steel. So if you don't have that Mother Nature's natural way to break down and separate those two key parts of the plant, then you're really going to struggle to get it into a processing stage.
Most people can see what bamboo makes as a material, right? And as I said, my family are from India. You see it all the time. It's used in construction. You go across Southeast Asia, it's there. And everyone can see bamboo solid, looks like kind of scaffolding poles. You can get that. Hemp is generally seen, and people kind of know what a cannabis plant looks like, but you can see what a weed looks like. Pretty floppy, right? So you might think of it, okay, is it similar to, I don't know, growing sugar beet or something like that? What I'm trying to get to is, what does it have in that stalk that gives it the strength that allows you to make building materials out of it? Is it just incredibly dense, or is it just its absorption, its give and take?
It's one of these magical unicorn plants. So your actual chemical makeup is very much like a weed. It is very, very strong on the outside. It is looking to survive. It comes in as a natural seed to come in and says, you know what? I'm in the ground. I'm here for a short period of time, and I'm going to do whatever it takes to survive. So the resilience of this plant is literally searching for moisture in the air, moisture in the soil. It's trying to survive in any aspect that it possibly can. And that's the resilience structure in behind it. So when you mentioned earlier about hemp's been used widely. In the UK, if you were a landowner in the Victorian day, you had to give 10% of your land to the crown, because every single rope, every single sail, every single piece of textile that was used in those Victorian days, even the World War I uniforms worn by US or UK soldiers, were all made from hemp. So hemp as a product, and the UK had one of the biggest growing cycles globally in the world. And we used to export huge amounts of hemp for ropes. And when you go to all these different naval museums and maritime museums, you will see British hemp rope. And whether you see it in China, whether you see it in the Nordic countries, back down to the Viking days, all of that material has been used as a fiber. So when we talk about, is it a new thing? No, it's been on the planet for decades and decades and centuries. You've got houses and bridges in China that are still 2,000 years old that have traces of it. You've got bamboo fiber and some of the other hemp fiber dating right back into the pyramids and some of the stones and such like that as a binder, as a product. So the material itself has been so widely used for centuries, and then we moved away from it because of other different things. But that's another whole podcast in itself about conspiracy theories on how and why the plant was demonized from a pharmaceutical level to a let's move into trees into a lumber manufacturing space. So all of the different types of material once upon a time were used were all coming from hemp. And you had the first Henry Carr Ford was made from hemp. Fuel from hemp.
No way.
Yeah, it is. Again, when you look into the uses dating back less than 100 years ago, we were running everything on hemp.
Where would we use it now? So you saw what's being done in Canada, and you're doing it now in the UK, right? So I don't know whether you're doing it under license or you've got the process. So let's just go through some basic things. This is my rapid fire round. Do you grow the hemp here in the UK, or is it?
Yeah, there is growing now in the United Kingdom, and in partnership with a number of different farming organizations, and it is being now used as a savior crop from the British farming co-ops that are working with it currently over the last couple of years. We are seeing more and more farmers look to hemp as a new crop, a new revenue generation crop in the summer times where traditional crops are failing because of climate change. And the wheat and some of the other barley and things that they're growing here are just subjected to horrific temperatures. If you look at what we just had here in May,
the heat wave.
And we just had a massive heat wave. Well, those farmers are planting those seeds and everything else. Those seeds are looking for moisture to start to grow and expand. When they get faced with that type of temperature or prolonged temperatures like that, and with climate changing so rapidly and so often, they go back into survival mode. And when they go back into survival mode, that means they protect themselves. And when they protect themselves, that just stops the growing cycle, almost like a period at the end of sentence. So the yields and the height and the crops don't get to anywhere near where they should be, which has such a massive commercial and environmental impact in the farming community, which is already under massive pressure from this Labour government, which is, again, another podcast for another day on the tragedy of that. And we really absolutely need to be backing as many of the British farming communities as we can. But as a crop that we can rotate in the middle of the spring or the summer season really does help farmers reinvigorate their soil, have another cash crop. But the biggest problem is where do you go with it? What do you do with that? So whilst growing in partnership with a number of different organizations, if you don't have that processing, what do you do from seed and how do you get it to sale? And that was one of the big things that we looked at here, going back almost 6-7 years when we were talking to the developers and the bigger industry government organizations about incorporating and coexisting within traditional building materials and new advanced sustainable environmental building materials. And the big challenge they had back to us was, listen, Michael, we like the product. Again, it's a unicorn. And even if half of the stuff is proven to be true, it will change building again across the United Kingdom forever, as it already has globally. We just haven't adopted it yet. And the main reason they kicked back at me was, look, it's a necessity, or is it a nice to have? If it's not a necessity product and it's an environmental or sustainable, there's a perception of cost. And because that cost is generally a lot higher, it doesn't become a necessity. It's a nice to have, and nice to haves generally don't meet the budgets of the P&Ls, and that gets moved on. The other challenge was, well, listen, Michael, how much do you have here? How much is in the UK for raw material to manufacture? Because I've got 400 homes, Michael, and if you can only deliver me 200 and an act of God comes over here, you're scaring the hell out of me, where I can actually get in new lumber. I can bring in new steel. So there's these transitions in which case you turn around and go, if we're really going to be serious about this natural material, we have to grow on scale. We have to give the confidence to the builders, to the government organizations, that we are ready to go at scale. And we have seen companies being very successful here in the UK in incorporating it. But one of the key things that we looked at is, okay, let's deal with the two big challenges these guys have we've got to convince them of. And that is, let's give them the confidence that we've got enough to grow it. Let's get enough of the volume so we can bring down the price point. But more importantly, let's get it certified and let's get it tested. So those that turn around and say, hey, Michael, can I come over to your house and smoke it? And get this conversation into now where that was the active conversation 4 years ago. Now it's, Michael, the U value in this house is insane. We don't have a fire sock in here. We don't have a membrane. We're prefabricating all this stuff. The guys are rapid building on site. This is incredible. And that transition over the course of the last 3 or 4 years is a positive movement in the application of architects specifying it, builders being more comfortable using it, more properties and developments globally coming in that people can point to, but closer to home, the projects that we're actually putting in here now, where we can point to it, we could show them. And when you're looking at it, whatever, depending the application you're using, they're turning around going, well, what the heck? Why aren't we using it? Why is this difficult? And you're kind of going, well, you guys came to me because you didn't want to work with it. I'm here to show you how it works with it, and it's easier than the traditional stuff.
What can you what can you make it into? So, what would you use it for? Would you use it to replace timber, or would you use it to replace, for example, insulation, the fabricated insulation? So, can you give me sort of things, building materials, you can turn this hemp into?
So the two things you come out from the growing side of things. So you really come back out, and what you're looking for is a stock, what they call hemp shiv. Okay.
Right.
Hemp shiv, almost visualize a piece of wood pulp. That's what it looks like, but it's made with hemp. And it, because of the rapid growth, it's embedded that carbon. So that carbon, because of the rapid growth, is never going to be released. It locks it in. Okay. So you've got a piece of hemp shiv, looks like wood. Being a podcast, I don't have any to show you here.
Yeah.
But it literally is what we're looking at as the raw material. The second piece is the hemp fiber, the textile. Right. That's what we're using for. We've got to separate that texture. So we literally, by the time we get through the processing machine, you're coming out with two different things, hemp fiber and hemp shiv, and you can do different things with it. And that's when the applications start. Where a lot of companies have been really successful, and again, you can point to all kinds of different companies right across the planet, and certainly here in Europe. And now there's some really great companies in the UK really driving the market in the hemp fiber insulation. So replacement of rock wool.
Okay? Yeah.
So you're
Which
still
would be
getting
a brilliant thing to replace.
Exactly it. And anyone who's ever had to work with rock wool and in pink fiberglassing, you're itching, you're scratching, you got the hazmat suit on.
Stuff.
It's really difficult, but also it's the environmental side of it. It naturally breaking down. It's a glass fibrous material. It doesn't break down equally or environmentally on a level that it could, but it's the solution. You know, some call it the modern day asbestos, but needless to say, it's there. It's been widely used and widely accepted, and the companies are worth billions. Now what we're looking for is a natural material that actually can be punched back in, and we can actually get to the same R values and same U values as the fiberglass materials do. But, you know, there are some critical differences. You know, it's not just all perfect and rosy on the hemp side. There is a fire rated situation.
Of course.
So whilst science and technology continues to advance the natural materials, how companies are punching it and binding it and making it look like a hemp fiber bat. So you're seeing a lot of wool being used, a lot of natural wood fibers being used, and now the hemp fiber is doing exactly that. So the advancements of that, when we first started, the fibers we were getting were down at a F fire rating. So again, it would ignite, spread flame. And now we're back up at a B rating because of the different innovations that we're using in different magnesiums and things like that we're punching in. So not taking away from the performance of the hemp fiber, but adding in other natural materials to give it a better rating for that. But when you're using it in loft and when you're using it in your building and your floor and your heating, it's just such an easy material to work with. The builders absolutely love it. But more importantly, the performance is there. You're at the end of the day, regardless of what it is, the performance has to. You got to keep your house warm. You got to keep your house cold, man. That's the whole idea of insulation.
Having done a lot of building work, one thing that kills people is the dust, right? So just as a question, we all know what those things look like, the foam things. Is there less dust with these hemp sort of hybrid materials, or is it the same? Or, you know, what I'm trying to say, the carbon story I get, the structural story I get, but there's a kind of, you know, aerosol pollution, that sort of side of it. How does it measure up with that?
All right. On the fiber side of things, on the fiber insulation, people can visualize rock wool, natural fiber, rolls it out in bats. You put it in your wall, your loft insulation, your roof insulation, floor insulation. So that's fundamentally what we do with the fiber.
Gotcha.
And it is easy to use. You literally just cut it out with a saw. There is no gas mask needed. There is no gloves needed. It is simple. It is so simple to use. And that's what makes it such a great product, and you can use it anywhere. So again, from the absorption of moisture to the regulation of the thermal performance of the property, but as a benefit, it also acts as a sound barrier. So the acoustics properties are so much better as well. So you're getting about 5 or 6 different benefits. Now, fire might be super important to you. Acoustic might be somewhere else. You and our values and thermal performance somewhere else. You're getting the whole package in one. So regardless of what you're sort of pinning the performance on, you're getting all of it at one price point that's equally at the same price now as what the traditional materials will be. So that's really the biggest fiber option. And then, of course, the textiles. There's more people now chasing me for long fiber because they want to move from polyester. They want to move away from cotton.
Gotcha.
They want, and the advancements in bamboo, wearable technology and underwear and socks and things like that.
All of that.
That is coming massively back in with the hemp in a textile, which again is another one. But keeping the focus on the build side. So now we know what we're doing principally with all of the hemp fiber. And you're also looking at applications from BMW, Mercedes-Benz, and even VW recently using all of the new dashboards, hemp fiber in the dashboards because they like the lightweight nature of it. It's nice and light. And the thermal properties of that, the acoustic properties of it, even indoor panels, roof panels, or all of these things are now being used as another application instead of using non-traditional materials that are not great for the environment. So applications in fiber are great.
Yeah. What about the structural strength? For example, can you use it as, instead of building my window frame out of timber, could I use the hemp stalk, as you said, that other material? Could that be solid enough to load, carry loads? Or is that
load bearing? No, almost 90%, 99% of all of the hempcrete, which is the second base of the material, is non-load bearing. So what we do, we'll go back into the fiber. I think we've killed the fiber conversation, give you enough of that. But onto the hemp shiv, right? So this is the second part. This is really where we focus in on
the pulp type material.
The pulp type material, yeah. So again, you're visualizing, and your guest listening, visualize just really light pieces of wood chip, right? But it's come in from the hemp. It's got all the embedded carbon in, and I tell you right now, it's lime mortar, and it's dust and water. You put all that together in a mix, and you get hempcrete. I wish I would say
I like it.
I wish I could be more technically advanced than that, and I wish I could be the rock star that saves the planet with that. But it's 3 ingredients, man, and and there's different applications on binder, but lime is the principal binder. And when you mix that water, the lime, and the hemp shiv together, good clean hemp shiv, what you then get is Mother Nature's natural binder, and it is incredible. Now, there's different binders that you can use for different applications. So a lot of what we see here in the UK is hemp brick, and it acts as an insulator. Okay, so your timber frame, think about you're just building a timber frame house. Yeah. So your timber frame goes up, and you literally build out your paneling system. So a lot of the paneling systems that we repurpose and resell literally is a timber frame, your design. It's not a modular system. It's all prefabricated, and it's your design, your window, your door, your lighting, your panels, your section. We literally build out the paneling solution. We run the PCB piping through it for your plumbing, your electrics, and then we fill it and we lock it in and we press in the hempcrete into your wall panel. Okay, we then let that dry, and then what comes back onto your site as a modular construction comes back in. The trades are in there for days, not weeks and months, because that's rapid build. They're just pulling it. They're not re-drilling it. They're not having to fight with insulation. They're not having to fight with waiting for the plumbers to come in or electrolyzers to come in. They're not trying to move around the fiberglass guys. They're not looking at 6 other different trades in the way before they can come in. It's a prefabricated panel based on your design. There's your window, there's your door, that's where you want electric, there's your plumbing hole down the middle, and away you go. So the rapid build time of modular constructions built as you wished off-site is the way forward. So when these governments are talking about, building thousands and thousands of these homes, it's impossible. There's not enough infrastructure for it. There's not enough tradesmen to put it all together. And whilst I think modular homes and where that failure of that particular type of product offering for housing has failed, prefabricated offsite construction that can be rapidly put together, you're putting houses. If you can count to 10, you can put a single masonry floor together. All the panels wrap in. You don't need the huge amount of experience. You need someone who can run a crane, pop them all in place, you connect them all up, and there's your fireproof house. There's your insulated house. There's your soundproofing house. There's your natural, clean, environmental house where it naturally breathes for you as well. And it's going to outlast anything you could possibly put in a traditional space. And when you put it in as a render, whether you put in, we've got a new partner that we're working with on Von Hoff, where they've got their hemp panels that replace chipboard and acoustic panels that replace OSB boards. And all of a sudden you're putting that on. And when the customer comes through it, it just looks like
a house.
Yeah. And you turn back around, going, where's the hemp house? Well, you're in it.
Yeah.
Well, it just looks like a normal house. Well, it is. It's a timber frame. It's a timber frame or a steel frame with all your natural insulations. And the insulation just happens to do 4 things that are absolutely mandatory in building construction methods. It's fireproof, it's moisture proof, it has all the acoustic performances, and it's nice and clean. And so therefore, all of these things are in there. And that's where the developers are coming back in going, why is this so complicated? It's not, guys. Well, why are you here on trying to help you? And I'm saying, guys, I just want you to see it so you can then turn around and you can make sure that you've got an understanding of it. That's it. That's that simple.
Where are we now? How many have you got? Some developments happening. You don't have to name names or places, but are there houses that have been built with this hempcrete and this hemp material, or is it still in the kind of testing phase?
No, we've gone. We've got BBA certification. There's BRE certification on fire. All of these things have already been advanced. They're moving forward. There's like thousands and thousands of different buildings right across Europe where once upon a time we were jumping on planes to take builders around, but you're kind of walking onto a development going, well, this looks like a housing development.
So have you got some in the UK right now being built?
Yeah, absolutely. We've got them. We've put in place. There's all kinds of different building structures that we can bring out people to. We did the first, and one of these applications, which I think is again completely game changing for the UK market. And again, you've got it widely used all across Europe, but are the noise and sound barriers for highways and motorways and rail lines. And so think of a traditional fence panel that you would never replace ever again. It's literally
my dream. You're telling me my dream, Michael.
And now what you throw on is you throw some beautiful ivy on top of it or natural flowers, and you have a big, beautiful wall that's fireproof. You don't hear your bloody neighbors, soundproofing. And when the ivy grows in, it looks absolutely stunning. But you're also creating more environmental protections. You're creating new habitats. You're adding to the BNG, where developers are really struggling to try and get those credits. So not only are you replacing fencing and steel panels with a natural solution that outperforms it at the scale that we're building it to now and manufacturing it to now, the price point comes back down. Like for like, year 1, we're probably 5% more expensive. Year 3, year 5, when you start thinking about replacing wood fence panels, we're cheaper. And then if you compare that to steel fencing, we're already there. We're already at that price point without all the environmental protections that you're getting as an add-on. So the hemp fencing structures that we've got in play is game changing. From railways to protection lines, even all of the stuff from paddle. We do more paddle walls and everything else like that.
The very
paddle's taking off like crazy in the UK. And if you've ever been to a paddle court, it sounds like you're in the middle of a gunfight with all the
it is. Yeah, absolutely.
And a lot of the bigger planning and clubs that are still outdoors, replacing on tennis courts, are always getting challenged back about the noise and sound issues. Well, the sound barrier issues that we put back up, you're looking at a 50 to 60% decibel level. So it's absorbing that sound and dissipating it. And again, there's different cause than everything else. So all of a sudden now you've got a club that's got planning, that's ticked all the environmental boxes.
And doesn't annoy the neighbors.
And it doesn't annoy the neighbors. And where the other noise comes on it, the neighbors turn around and go, well, I don't want a big wooden shitty fence there. But you turn around and you put a beautiful hemp wall from it that's grown in ivy and everything else. They're turning around going, that's stunning. I'm all over it. Thank you. And I can't hear you what's going on the other side. So the application, as far as it being widely used, but again, think of pathways. Think of every single motorway off-ramp where you have hempcrete in the same shape as a compaction side of it.
I'm sorry, Michael. We're sort of out of time. But hemp is the way to go. Very briefly, within the next
We're doing it now. I mean, it's the motivations are there, the environment and the information is there, the innovation's there, the testing's there, the certification's there, the data is there, and the advancement and want and need from the people who want to buy those new houses. There's a social responsibility. If I can buy something better and it's more environmentally safer for the planet and my own personal self and family, and it's at a price point, why ain't I doing it? And that's what we've done is we've changed the narrative. We've literally said, guys, here it is and all the different benefits you get from it. Why wouldn't you use it at the price point you're getting it at?
Get yourself into hemp. That's the message.
Hemp is the way forward. Build with hemp. That's where we are, my man.
Michael, thank you so much for your time.
It's been
brilliant. Absolute pleasure. Ladies and gents, check out the website, see what they're doing. Let us know what you think on social media. My thanks to Rob for the production this week, and we'll see you again on the Net Hero podcast.
You've just heard the Net Hero podcast from FutureNetZero.com. Join us as we help you find ways to cut your carbon footprint as we head towards net zero. Subscribe and follow us on social media. FutureNetZero.com. Better business, better planet.